Hello YouTube, thanks for tuning in to another video. If you're new to the channel, then I do lots of music production tutorials. There's some DJ tutorials coming up soon. I was going to do a beginner's course to DJ, and so keep an eye out for that. Yeah, live performances, music production stuff. Also listen to my subscribers' music. So there's some more Res Reacts coming up soon. So yeah, if you are new, then please, usual things, you know, like the videos, assuming you like it. If you don't, just don't watch it. Yeah, subscribe, hit the bell button and all the usual things. And if you want to help support the channel, then you can do that via my Patreon. Which is a very, very small amount a month. It starts at £1, $1 or €1 a month. There are different tiers, up to £3.50 and then up to £5 a month. We'll get you free stuff, as well as basically just helping support the channel. And then I use your money to make new videos, better videos, get better equipment, get more equipment, and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, if you want to consider doing that, or just go and play my music, buy some of my music, any of that sort of stuff all helps. So, as you've noticed from the title of this video, which is called Recording MIDI from Hardware into Ableton Live and then Converting it to Audio. Nice, snappy, short title. I may make it shorter than that when I actually upload this, but we'll see. So this one actually came about from a question I got. I had an email from somebody, a guy called James Edmonds. Hello, James. I hope you don't mind me giving your name out, but I've already done it, so it's too late. He was having some difficulties with getting his MIDI and audio and into Ableton and playing back from his TR-8S hardware drum machine. We had a bit of an email conversation. I was not 100% sure entirely what he was trying to achieve, but I think on his last email he put it in very basic terms, which is what my brain sometimes needs. So what he'd put was, he just wants to be able to send MIDI notes into Ableton from the TR-8S, so he can then alter and play about with the MIDI notes to make some tracks. He went on to say he's still very new to the machine, to the TR-8, and also to Ableton, so he thinks MIDI notes are just a lot easier to use and edit them however you want. So obviously he's wanting to get away, I think, from programming the stuff on the TR-8 and probably having more flexibility of longer MIDI clips that you can obviously make them as long as you want within Ableton and so on. And I think he was then having some issues with actually getting the audio, getting that MIDI converted to audio to actually export and so on. So I'll try and cover all of that in this video. The only slight difference is I don't have a TR-8 or a TR-8S. I used to have a TR-8 that I sold a year or two ago when I got the Deluge, because the Deluge has all the Roland drum sounds on it. I probably now regret selling it, which happens with most gear. I sell and then regret it, but hey-ho, it happens. So I'm doing this with a Behringer RD8, which is principle is exactly the same. Basically, any whatever hardware you're using, it's the same principle, whether it's a synth or a drum machine. So let's just go through the connections first of all. If your hardware device does MIDI over USB, then obviously you can just plug the USB straight in. If not, you may need some sort of USB MIDI interface to actually get the MIDI into your computer. I'm using, let's just get into my preferences. So I'm using this at the moment, the UM1. This is a Roland UM1 MIDI to USB interface. So basically one end of the cable has a standard USB connection that goes into your computer, and then on the other end you have two 5-pin MIDI cables, one that goes to MIDI out and one that goes to MIDI in, and that is how I've got my RD8 connected up to my laptop. You'll see above, I've also got the TD3 connected, so this is just doing it via USB. So if your device does that, it will show up here as a MIDI port. So in terms of the stuff we've got over here for sending the output, I've just got track and remote sent on, so I can send stuff out. I've also got sync set on the output, because what I want to do is when I press play or record within Ableton, I want it to start the drum machine playing. Obviously to do that you would need to set your drum machine or your sequencer or whatever it is you're using to be synchronized by external MIDI, so not on its internal clock, it would be on external clock. Very often there'll just be like an auto setting and internal. If it's on auto, it just generally just kind of the easiest way to do it, and it works that way. So if I play the RD8, as you can hear in the background. Okay, I've just got a basic pattern in there. Now, the moment that was playing from its internal clock, if I switch it over to the MIDI clock and I now press play in Ableton, okay, you can hear that that is now starting and stopping because we've got the remote set on for the output. Right, so what we need is not an audio track. Let's get rid of these. So we're going to start with a basic MIDI track, basic MIDI track, and we will record the MIDI notes from the RD8 into Ableton Live. So first of all, we've got to set some stuff up over here. First of all, these are all my MIDI inputs. So obviously we're going to choose the one that we are connected to, which in this instance is the UM1. You can just send it on all channels. If I press play on the RD8, let's get it back to its internal clock, it will flash on all because it's going in on all, but it will also flash on whichever MIDI channel I've got it set to, which you'll see down here is channel 14. So my RD8 is transmitting and receiving on channel 14. So to avoid any MIDI coming in from elsewhere, we're going to just stick that on that channel. And then to be able to hear back what we're playing, so to sort of send those MIDI notes back in to trigger the sounds of the RD8, we need to send the MIDI back out, and this is where the output comes in. So again, select the same MIDI interface, and then we're on channel 14. Now, a lot of devices will be able to send and receive on different MIDI channels, so just got to make sure you got your device, your hardware device set up correctly, and that you're sending and receiving on the correct MIDI channels. So if I arm this track and then, excuse me, it's really just a case of me recording on here, and as it's synchronized up, it will start playing automatically. He says, so it will do if I change the setting, and we'll just record a couple of bars, and then we'll move on from there. Okay. Now you may have heard, I'm not sure whether that was coming through on this recording or not, but it was kind of like doubling up. That's because I was still monitoring the input on here. If I turn it off and just sort of play it again, I don't know if you'll hear this, but you can hear if you have it on in. So just for the purpose of recording, I'll have that on off because it's, yeah, it gets annoying when you get that double thing coming through. Let's take that back on auto. Let's just take this down to 2 bars so we're not playing anything too long. Now I've got my record quantization set to 16th notes just so it'll snap everything nicely to the grid. Now I've noticed for some reason, I don't know why, it's starting to record a little bit late actually. It's kind of like a bar out, and I'm not entirely sure why, but it's not the end of the world because you can see everything is actually what I would do here, because it records very, very short MIDI notes. If I take the grid onto 16ths, okay, you can see they are tiny. So if we do Control A and select everything, what I generally do is I will stretch them out just so we've got 16th note lengths of MIDI notes, because you can actually see what you're doing a bit easier then. And let's just go, just consolidate that just so we've not got it going off the screen down there. Okay, so yeah, here is beat 1. All right, which obviously should be here. So there's a couple of ways of sorting that problem out. We could just drag across there and bring it along and extend it to the end there. Or the other way is if you just select everything again, Control A, sorry, on there, and just drag everything along to the beginning, then we should be fine, and it will all start and line up nicely on the grid. So just obviously make sure you've got everything lined up nicely on the grid. So if we play that back, hang on, let's turn that off again because I'm getting it monitored through twice. Okay. Why is it not looping? There we go. Okay, some weird doubling up of stuff. So yeah, you just got to watch out. A lot of it's down to how you are monitoring your input. I've got, because I'm recording my microphone through, I've got a ridiculously overcomplicated setup for recording my microphone. and I've got my audio interface set on direct input, so I'm not actually monitoring anything from here, from Ableton Live. So yeah, that's why I'm getting a bit of weird stuff going off. Now, what you might find is that if you are monitoring just from Ableton Live and not kind of like the direct input into your hardware, this will happen when you play back. Okay, you won't hear anything because you're not monitoring the sound. And basically this is just a blank MIDI track. There's no instrument on this. As far as Ableton's concerned, it's just MIDI notes, and it doesn't know what it's supposed to play. Obviously, if we put a like an 808 kit or a drum machine or whatever in here, we would start to hear that. But and I think that's where one of the problems that James might have been having with his was kind of hearing it back and monitoring it like that. So one way of getting over that is we could use the external instrument. Okay, which sort of converts this into almost like an audio track. So we've still got to tell it where to send the MIDI to. So UM1, channel 14, as we did before. And then what we're going to have is the audio coming back in to the audio interface. And my RDA is plugged into channel 4 on my audio interface here. So if I now play it back, okay, you should then start to get the audio coming back in. If you didn't want to use the external instrument, another way of doing it would be to set up another track. And if let's just loop that around and play that. Okay, you'll see we've got all the inputs here. So I'm on 4 there. Okay, so that's another way of doing it, of kind of routing it in through that way, which I think if so you won't hear that. I've got to keep switching back to my microphone. So another way is, yeah, if you have this on in or auto, you will hear the sound coming back in this way. Probably a little bit messier that way, although we that's one way we'll do it for recording it. But I'll get rid of that now, and we'll go back to using the external instrument, because the external instrument is quite useful. Because you can do latency settings and change your gain and all sorts down here. So we've now got the option, obviously, to go in and change some of the MIDI notes. So let's just do that. So then you can start to mess around with oh, hang on. Where's my clap? Is that the clap? Yeah. So it's really just a case of knowing which note your hardware is sending out the MIDI information on. Obviously, if it's just an audio sequencer doing notes, the notes will match up on here. Slightly different with the drums. I know on the RD8 you can decide which notes each drum sound is sent out on. Sometimes it's a little bit of trial and error of just remembering it on here. So, you know, it's just a case of just doing stuff like this. And that kind of stuff. So you can then start to manipulate your MIDI on here. Obviously, the benefit of doing your MIDI within here is you can have this MIDI clip for as many bars as you want. I mean, for example, on the RD8, you can have up to 64 steps, so that's 4 bars. You've then got to start to chain patterns together if you want a longer pattern than that. So there are, benefits of doing it this way, because, you can see straight away your patterns, and I know some people are a lot more visual than others and like to be able to see the notes and all sorts. So once you've got your pattern sorted, it's really then a case of, how do we now get that out and into like a single wave file? So we can just export it. If you're using the external instrument, you can just export. So what you'll do is your normal thing, because it will kind of read this almost like it's a VST plugin. So we go export audio. Now you'll notice here you'll get an extra thing here, like a project being rendered. So when we press export, you might not get the next screen up, I'm not sure, but obviously we decide where we want to save it to. There's then a screen will come up which you can't see, but it will say waiting for external instruments and effects to become silent, and it usually waits 10 seconds. And then it will basically play through the track in real time, as it's doing now. Okay, and then it's exported. So if I now go back over to my desktop and bring that in, which is here. Okay, so that is what we have just exported using that method. Now again, you may find, depending on your hardware, there may be a little bit of a latency issue. So you can see here that these aren't lined up. Okay, so it's easily sorted. And the easiest thing is just go to the first transient marker there. Oh, hang on. Create a new one and then just set that as 111, and then everything should be nicely lined up on your grid. Even if you're slight, I mean, you've got a very slight gap there, which over 4 bars, 2 bars, 4 bars, you're not going to notice that. Over a 3-4 minute song, that's going to drift out and sound awful. So just make sure you get that. I mean, you may not have that issue if you've got a really super duper fast sound card with no latency. And then that is basically, if we just mute the drums on there. Okay, so that is now just the audio playing that we had previously. And obviously that is the audio file that was exported, and obviously anything else in your project would be exported with it. So I think that covers everything that James needed to know. I hope that answers your question. If not, I'm sorry. Let me know and I'll try and answer it a bit more. But yeah, hopefully that is of some use to a few other people out there as well. And if you like the video, then give it a like, and let's say subscribe, support me on Patreon, play my music and all that sort of stuff. And thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Cheers.